Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to my session from API specification to Apex test run in less than 2 minutes. Who likes that statement? That's what I thought when I put up the title. So first of all, forward-looking statement, whatever you will see, make any buying decisions on things that are currently available in product. My name is René Winkelmeier. I work as a developer evangelist with Salesforce. If you attended the keynote this morning and you remember the lion in the driver's seat, that's me. Take a picture of that, right? I have the lion wig with me, but I'm not wearing it again, today at least. Otherwise it will smell like a lion. OK, OpenAPI. Who has heard about that specification before? A couple of folks. And this topic in general is something that is very near to my heart as someone who has written many integrations over the last 19 years. And yes, I'm that old, where I have had to connect to other systems, where to retrieve data from other systems, and where I always had to write the integration part, right? Connect to the REST API, handle the authentication, digest the XML or the JSON of the specification, and like that. And OpenAPI really made it easy for me, in the non-Salesforce world at least, to consume external APIs, right? I could point a generator to the specification or to a specification file, and they would automatically generate for me the boilerplate code that I needed to talk to that API. And that's what the OpenAPI specification now currently in version 3 helps. It is a description of a REST service. So if you know OpenAPI, you likely also know Swagger, right? Couple of people? Yeah. Most people, that's great. So Swagger is, and OpenAPI was formerly called the Swagger specification and then became an OpenAPI specification, is an open source tooling available on GitHub with a code generator where you can point your Swagger specification file to, and it will generate for you the code to talk to that API in the language of your choice. So I guess the language of your choice is not R or Ruby, right? Apex, couple of folks? Yeah, I imagine. The good thing is, this was the last slide that you will see, because we will dig into demos. I think that's the best part, right? So I have this awesome demos slide. So there we go. So this is a Swagger specification file. For those who may have not worked with it, it is a description, most often in JSON, but the new format is mostly YAML, where you can specify how your REST API works. To give you an example, in this specification, it points to the host pet store Swagger.io. This is basically the hello world of Swagger, right? The standard implementation. And it tells you that the base path is version 2. So with its description, you know that whatever goes has to go to petstore Swagger.io with a junction v2. And it describes every single service on every single URL which is available. So on /pet, you can issue a post, and you can get information like what kind of information can you send there, application XML or JSON files, and also what it returns. And gives you a description of parameters that you have to pass, right? So basically, really a description of the REST service. So this is kind of cool. What you also get when you use Swagger is automated generated documentation for REST service, which is also really cool, right? As soon as you have your definition file built up, Swagger has tools to automatically document them. So with this pet store, and I'll make it a bit larger, you can see all the junctions, for example, find pets by status, and we can just try it out. I'm going to say, give me all available pets by status. I execute this. And if the gods of Wi-Fi are with me, it gives you, in this example, in XML, all the return data. So you can play with an API that is described by Swagger. So this is nice, but that doesn't help us in Apex land, right? That doesn't help us in your Salesforce instance. So whenever you work with external APIs that are described via Swagger, you still have to write all Apex. And you still have to write all your test classes. I hope you all write test classes, right? I mean good test classes, not single liner. Just saying, right? Good testing. So if you want to integrate Swagger or OpenAPI, specified APIs into your Salesforce environments, you have two options. The first option is using point and click, which I honestly prefer if possible, because you don't have to write any Apex. It's automatically maintained by us, Salesforce, and you can implement it in most scenarios. The second option is you use Apex. So let me first introduce you to the integrations options. So you remember the Swagger specification file that I just saw in VS Code. And we have in setup an option which is called integrations, external services, that you can point to a Swagger definition file, and that will automatically generate for you invocable Apex, which is kind of cool, right? So we just do this. I'm going to add an external service. We have a wizard that brings us through this process. You give it a name. I call it Pet Store because that's what I'm connecting to. And I'm defining the schema. So basically on /v2/swagger.json. Now you may wonder, where is this definition pulled from, right? So basically, where does it on which host is it? So if I proceed, I can choose a name credential. And this is something that I just prepared for us. So I set up a name credential, which contains the host name of the definition file. I'm selecting this credential, and this can also contain authentication like OAuth or basic auth. And when I hit save, it generates for me all the Apex actions. Update pet, add pet, and so forth, right? Everything just available. And what you can do with this is then you can use it in Flow. So we automatically add all generated methods to Flow that you can add functionality with input and output parameters to your own visual flows, which is really, really neat, right? I mean, this is a lot of methods. So I'm not going into Cloud Flow Designer, right? Nobody wants to flash it right now. But there are many other scenarios where you want to talk to an external service that is Swagger described, which is not handled by Flow. Batchable Apex. Daily background task in Apex, just to name two of them. So for using this, you can use my Salesforce plugin and automatically generate Apex classes, test classes, with a few simple command lines. So let's bring up VS Code again. Just closing this file because we don't need it. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm highlighting my small command. sfdx, that's my nickname. I'm not trying to spell that. Don't ask me where it's coming from, right? Swagger import. And if you run this command, you get a few options. Tell me for which API version you want to have the Apex classes generated. Tell me where the Swagger definition file is, where you want to have put it, and also a class prefix. You will see later what it is. So I'm going to create a simple Swagger test directory, for example, and I'm just going into this one. So what I'm now pointing to is I am importing a file, -p, it's on my desktop, it's the pet store Swagger definition file, and I'm telling my plugin to generate everything just into this folder. So I run this. It doesn't take long, right? So if you have a stopwatch, this was the first 2 seconds of the less than 2 minutes. So if I look in this, awesome. I have everything in here, right? So let's see if VS Code now opens another window. That's awesome. So let's do this. So what now got generated is a full name credential definition for this Swagger definition file, as well as Apex classes, including Apex test classes. Short pre-warning, some of the tests will fail. Just saying. And you also get documentation in Markdown format for your Apex classes. I think it's really important. I mean, we all document our code, right? Right? Good. So when I open this and preview to the side, you get a real good documentation of what is included in your Apex classes. Right? So every developer can easily digest that. So now that I have my classes generated and my documentation, so let's bring up the terminal. And what I'm now going to do is that I create a brand new scratch org using Salesforce.dx because I want to test the newly generated Apex classes, right? I just want to test that. So this creates a brand new scratch orgs that may take a couple of seconds. I hope this goes a bit faster. There we go. I have my new scratch org. And then I'm going to push the name credential as well as the Apex classes to my new org. And there we go, right? My code, my test classes. And I pre-warned you that the tests will fail. So those of you who never worked with Salesforce.dx, you can easily run. And this is for every org, not only scratch orgs, but also production orgs or sandbox orgs, any kinds of Apex tests. So I'm running the Apex tests. And it gives me, because it is an asynchronous process, the log files. And now you will see a couple of failures running right now, right? So I have an 88% pass rate. This is basically because this whole plugin is still work in progress. And I'm working on the new OpenAPI 3 specification. But you have a bunch of Apex classes generated. You have your test classes. So that should work, right? I mean, test class is test class. So does it really run? So let me create just a new project in here. And I am adding a bit of code. And just give me some Apex highlighting so it's better. So this is the format of anything that you would generate using this plugin. Basically, you set up a new client. You get for every element that is generated an API class, like Sweatpack API. You pass the parameters. In this case, I want to get the pet with the ID 1011. And then just grab it. So let's see. Selecting the text. And I'm going to execute anonymous Apex in my scratch org, just from VS Code for this plugin. I'm getting a couple of results. And there we go. It doesn't look as great as in a Lightning component, but this is basically the output. So what you see here is now the output that I got from an external URL for which I just created my Apex classes based on the OpenSwagger definition with a couple of commands. No applause. Ooh. Ooh. OK, so why is this important? It is important because many, many, many services specify their REST APIs nowadays using a specification like OpenAPI. And you don't want to write all the Apex code by yourself, right? I mean, maybe you want that, but this kind of process really simplifies the experience for you. This is an example that I'm currently working on. We have Salesforce Einstein Platform Services, which are currently not described as Swagger. So I wrote my own Apex library for this, but I don't want this. I just want to go to editor.swagger.io. I just want to paste in my definition file. And this is productive, so you can play with it. Click on Generate Client. And there is Apex already in. So they added my first iteration of the Apex generator to the full spec. So, and this is my call to action for you. If you have an API that you want to work with, and it could be Spotify, it could be your own internal on-premises system, it could be any open API specification, just go to editor.swagger.io, paste the specification in, and if I just run this, it will hopefully download here at the very bottom. Yeah, that was at the very bottom of my screensaver, which is great. Here at the very bottom, a full zip file containing the full SFDX project. So you don't have even to run an SFDX CLI for that, which is also pretty great, right? You can just copy paste and you get your classes, you can insert them, you can upload them to a sandbox wherever you want to go. So, having said that, if my lovely PowerPoint comes back, what you now should do, and I really would appreciate this, by end of April, there will be an extensive blog post on our Salesforce developer blog, which will also mean that this goes GA. I mean, it's an open source project, and I will really encourage you to go install Swagger, install the plugin, and then try it out. Hopefully file no issues, but you likely will find issues because the specification is large, and help us to really grow this and make this a real good experience for any Salesforce developer with simplified automated generation of Apex classes using the Open API specification. Questions? I'm coming. I can't hear you. So the question is there something where you can generate a Swagger definition based on REST resources in Salesforce? That's next on my to-do list. I mean, technically you can use the metadata API and just build it automatically on yourself, but just imagine how large such a description would be just for an account object, right? But that's the next thing, what I'm looking into when this is up and running, to have it for the other direction, that other external services can consume Salesforce data based on a description. Next question. None? OK, then thank you for attending. I wish you a great Trailydix and enjoy. Thanks.